إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء، واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم، ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. ثم أما بعد، فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم، وشر الأمور محدثاتها، وكل محدثة بدعة، وكل بدعة ضلالة، وكل ضلالة في النار. ثم أما بعد. We begin, as always, by praising Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala with praises and exaltations that only He is worthy of. We begin by sending His salawat and His salamat, His blessings and His peace upon the last and final messenger, Muhammad bin Abdullah, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam wa ba'd. Then, insha'Allah ta'ala, to continue with what we began some hours ago, insha'Allah ta'ala, and to review that we spent the last talk of 40-45 minutes discussing the reality of this statement, or the reality of the unwan, of the title of this small seminar, or these lessons, which is that the path that leads to Allah is one. The path that leads to Allah is one. So Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He has established in His book that the path that leads to Allah is one. For this reason, in Surah Al-Fatiha, every single salah, every raka'ah of every salah, from the fara'id or the sunnah or the nawafil, or other than that, we make a dua. We make a dua to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. O Allah, guide us to the straight path. Guide us to the straight path. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. The path of those upon whom is your favor, not the path of those that have gone astray, nor the path of those upon whom is your anger. Or not the path of those upon whom is your anger, nor the path of those whom have gone astray. And also we mentioned the statement of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمًا فَاتَّبِعُوهُ وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا السُّبُلَ فَتَفَرَّقَ بِكُمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِهِ. That indeed this is my straight path, so follow it, my straight path. One, follow it. وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا السُّبُلَ فَتَفَرَّقَ بِكُمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِهِ. And do not follow the other ways, they will lead you astray from the path of Allah. Also, from the actions of the Prophet ﷺ, for what that which the Prophet ﷺ did, that one day he drew a line. He drew a line. خَطَّ لَنَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. He drew a line for us. ثُمَّ خَطَّ عَنْ يَمِينِهِ وَعَنْ شِمَالِهِ خُطُوطًا. And then he drew other lines on the right and on the left of it. خَطَّ لَنَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ خَطًّا. He drew a line for us. ثُمَّ قَالَ هَذَا سَبِيلُ اللَّهِ. This is the path of Allah. ثم خط عن يمينه وعن شماله خطوطا. Then he drew on the right of it and upon the left of it different lines. And he said, هذه السبل متفرقة. These are divided ways. They are divided ways. وعلى كل سبيل منها شيطان يدعو إليه. And upon each and every one of them there is a shaitan calling to. And this is the reality today, ya ikhwan. This is my reality, this is your reality, and this is what I want to speak about. Or an aspect of this that I want to speak about. I want to speak about an aspect of this. Think about this example. Think about the ayah and the hadith together. The Prophet ﷺ, he drew a line and said, this is the path of Allah. And then he drew numerous different lines on the right and on the left of it. And he said, هذه السبل متفرقة. These are divided ways. على كل سبيل منها شيطان. And there is a shaitan upon each and every one of them. And then that ayah, وَأَنَّ هَذَا صِرَاطِي مُسْتَقِيمًا فَاتَّبِعُوهُ وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا السُّبُلَ فَتَفَرَّقَ بِكُمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِهِ. That this is my path, this is my straight path, so follow it. This is my reality and your reality. If we shed the thoughts of what we have seen in the past, in our countries, in our people, or what we have generally seen amongst the people, you see so much differentiation. It should not be a surprise. The Prophet of Allah ﷺ said, many paths, but out of all of them, there's only one that leads to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. There's only one that leads to Allah Jalla wa Ala. A person might say, yes, the meaning of that is Islam. So, as long as you are Muslim, it doesn't matter. As long as you're Muslim, you attach yourself to Islam, it doesn't matter what you're on, what your aqidah is. It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what you do. You're Muslim and that will lead you to Jannah. And we say that goes against the prophetic advice that the Prophet ﷺ he gave. When he said, افترقت اليهود على 72 فرقة أو على 72 فرقة. The Jews, they divided into 71. They divided into 71 sects. The Christians, they divided into 72 sects. وَسَتَفْتَرِقُ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ عَلَى 73 فرقة. And this ummah will divide into 73 sects. كُلُّهَا فِي النَّارِ إِلَّا وَاحِدًا. And all of them are in the fire except one. So this hadith, it goes against this very popular belief. Intuition, really, we can call it. Right? It's an excuse that we create. It's an excuse that we create for ourselves because we don't want to put in the work of looking for the truth and then adhering to the truth. It's a lot easier for us to just remain upon what we're upon without measuring it with Quran and Sunnah and seeing if it is correct or if it is incorrect. It's a lot easier. So it's a scapegoat that we've created for ourselves. No, it's okay, everything is okay. Everything is okay. You can believe anything about Allah and it's okay. You can believe anything about His names and His attributes, it's okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The issue with this is that you can continue telling yourself this, but if you ponder over the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, It definitely matters. He said 73 sects this ummah will divide into, all of them in the fire but one. May Allah make us from those that the fire never touches. So now the question comes, okay, so how? Me? How do I know? How do I know which path is the correct path? How do I know which path is the straight path? We say the affair is rather quite simple. For the one for whom Allah makes it simple. And it's quite difficult for the one that Allah makes it difficult for. And we'll share 2 words of advice of the Prophet ﷺ. The hadith that we mentioned, when the Prophet ﷺ, he said that to the Sahaaba. From the habits of the Sahaaba was that when they saw that there was something that would benefit them, they would not remain quiet, they would ask. So when they found out, wait, this ummah will divide into 73 sects, all of them in the fire but one, they asked the Prophet ﷺ, Man hum ya Rasulullah? Who are they, O Messenger of Allah? And he said, Hum man ala mithli ma ana alayhi al-yawm, ma ana alayhi al-yawm, wa ashabi. There are those that are upon what I am upon today, and my companion. And my companions. So this is your first key. To find that correct path, you have to know what was the path of the Prophet ﷺ. Hence you have to compare it to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And then you have to see what was it that the Sahaba, Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'in, what were they upon? Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in. Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Anas ibn Malik, Abu Hurairah, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, all of these Sahaba, and other than them, these were some of the Imams of the Sahaba. What were they upon? So then you take what the Prophet ﷺ was upon, and you take the understanding of the Sahaba, and then you compare it. You bring a manhaj, you compare it. Does this match up? Is this the same? If it is the same, then it's welcome. If it's not the same, the Prophet ﷺ, he did one thing, but you, even if you are a Muslim, you are doing something else, we're not going to take it because the Prophet ﷺ didn't do it. In another hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Usikum bi taqwallah." I advise you with the fear of Allah. Wa bis-sam'i wa ta'ah. I advise you with listening and obeying. Wa in ta'ammara alaykum 'abdun habashiyyun. Even if your leader is an Ethiopian slave, you listen to him and you obey him. فَإِنَّهُ مَنْ يَعِشْ مِنْكُمْ فَسَيَرَى اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. For indeed the one who lives from amongst you. Now, the Prophet ﷺ is speaking to the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim. The one who lives from amongst you will see much differentiation. وَقَدْ صَدَقَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ فِي كَلَامِهِ. And the Prophet ﷺ spoke the truth in this speech. Today you find the Ummah mutafarriqah, divided into groups and into parties, making it difficult for the common Muslim to see what is haqq and what is batil. But for the one who desires it and who has good intentions, then indeed the affair is easy. The Prophet ﷺ then he gave advice. He said, فَإِنَّهُ مَنْ يَعِشْ مِنْكُمْ فَسَيَرَى اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. He who lives from amongst you, he will see much differentiation. Much differentiation. The solution, فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي. Upon you is my sunnah. وَسُنَّةِ خُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ الْمَهْدِيِّينَ مِنْ بَعْدِي. And the sunnah of my rightly guided khulafa after me. Very similar to the previous, right? Because the previous hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said that the saved sect is مَنْ عَلَى مِثْلِ مَا أَنَا عَلَيْهِ الْيَوْمَ أَصْحَابِي. Those that are upon what I am upon today and my companions. And in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is saying, upon you is my sunnah and the sunnah of my rightly guided khulafa. تَمَسَّكُوا بِهَا وَعَضُّوا عَلَيْهَا بِالنَّوَاجِذِ. Hold on to it, bite onto it with your molar teeth. وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَمُحْدَثَاتِ الْأُمُورِ. And be aware of newly invented matters. Be aware of bid'at. Be aware of innovations. Right? Because, as we discussed in the previous lecture, the deen is complete. The deen is complete. And innovation, if it is brought, the person bringing the innovation into the religion, the one who enters the innovation into the religion, there are two questions we should ask. Right? Let's take an example. Someone invents in the religion, or as it has been invented in the religion. For example, there is a very widespread action. And it is referred to as Mawlidun Nabi. Or in the Indian subcontinent, Miladun Nabi. Right? Which is basically the birthday of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And if you go, especially even over here, but especially if you go to certain countries, you will find that the amount of celebration that takes place upon this day far outranks and outweighs even the celebration of Eid al-Adha and Eid al-Fitr. Even outweighs that. The amount of spending, the amount of work, the amount of joy, the amount of participation that goes into this, it far outweighs even Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. So the one who celebrates it, now we have a manhaj in front of us, right? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, you're going to see differentiation. There's differentiation. Here you have someone who says, you celebrate Mawlid al-Nabi. Then you have those that say, you don't celebrate Mawlid al-Nabi. Then you have those who say, who cares if you celebrate, if you don't celebrate, it doesn't matter, right? You have all of these things. So now let's apply the manhaj. Let's apply the advice of our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So you say to this individual, this thing that you have brought, what you have brought, this Mawlidun Nabi, that you celebrate year in and year out, is there proof for this in the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? And the answer will be, No, there's no proof for it. The Prophet ﷺ never celebrated his birthday. After the death of the Prophet ﷺ, who remained? The Sahaaba. Who was the best of them? Abu Bakr, then Umar, then Uthman, then Ali. Right? Radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'een. And then the rest of the Ashara Mubashireen bil Jannah. Then the rest of the Ashara Mubashireen bil Jannah. And then the Muhajirun. The Muhajirun have a higher status than the Ansar. Right? And then those that accepted Islam in the beginning have a higher status. Those that accepted Islam before the Fath of Makkah, the conquering of Makkah, they have a higher status than the ones that accepted Islam after the conquering of Makkah. Right? So they have different levels. But the worst of the Sahaba is better than the best of us. This is the Aqidah of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. So we ask, Abu Bakr remained, right? Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he is the one who, after the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he passed away, right? And he went in and he kissed the Prophet on his forehead. Then he went and he advised Umar, because Umar was very passionate, he was very angry, right? And he said what? Anyone who says that Muhammad has died, I'm going to cut off his head. Muhammad has not died. And he compared what happened with the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam like the going of Musa alayhi salam to Allah for 40 days, or Allah calling upon Musa for 40 days. So Abu Bakr, he advised him. So then we ask, okay, did Abu Bakr know the makan of the Prophet? Yes or no? Yes, right? Abu Bakr knew the makan. Is it possible that we, sitting here today in this room, or other than us, in the Muslim world today, can love the Prophet more than Abu Bakr loved the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? No. He's the first man to accept Islam. First man to accept Islam, Abu Bakr. The first free man to accept Islam, Abu Bakr. The first slave to accept Islam, Bilal al-Habashi. Did Abu Bakr know the makan, the status of the Prophet? Yes. Abu Bakr knowing the status of the Prophet, and Abu Bakr knowing the place, or loving the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he never celebrated the birthday. But you celebrate the birthday, yes. We celebrate the birthday because we love the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now here comes your second question. Now you ask them, okay, so you just said it's not from the Sunnah. Are you now completing the religion? Are you perfecting the religion? Well, what do you mean? What do you mean, am I perfecting the religion? Well, it's part of religion, right? Yes, I love the Prophet. I'm celebrating the Prophet's birthday because I love him. Okay, so are you perfecting the religion? One of two answers that he can give. Let's give an answer to both of them. Either he's going to say, yes, I'm perfecting the religion. If he says, yes, he is perfecting the religion, then we say to him, hence, you are then saying that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has lied in the Quran. وَالْإِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. And the person who belies Allah, says outright, no, Allah is not correct in this ayah, Muslim or not Muslim? Outside of Islam, right? So if he says, yes, I am perfecting the religion, which he is saying by his action. Because if he's saying it's not from the Sunnah, then you ask him, okay, are you perfecting? Yes, I'm perfecting. Khalas, and that means you believe Allah did not speak the truth in this ayah. Al-Yawma أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. This day I have completed my favor upon you, perfected the religion for you, and chosen Islam as a religion for you. Most likely, if he is someone understanding, he will say, no, I'm not perfecting the religion. Khalas, and you say, do you believe in the ayah that Allah's religion is perfect? Yes. Do you believe that Allah's religion is complete? Yes. Okay. So, if you believe that, then what you are entering into the religion, when you enter something into something which is complete, what happens? When something is complete, there is no room for anything. You can't add anything to it. If you add something to it, more and more will go out. Add more to it, more will go out. more and more will follow. This is very simple, right? Let's give an example. Let's give an example. Someone, for example, there's something that has been taken from the Buddhists. It's a very old action of the Buddhists. Is dhikr, making remembrance upon something called dhikr beads, right? Or I know in Urdu they call them tasbih, right? In Urdu and in Arabic, tasbih is the physical statement, subhanallah. But in the Urdu language, you call them tasbih. So now when you start using this, which was never used in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, it was not used in the time of the Prophet, you let go of a sunnah. And the sunnah is what? Making dhikr upon your hands. Now when you make dhikr upon your hands, are your hands going to testify for you on Yawm al-Qiyamah? Yes. So now you've innovated into the religion something, and because of your innovation, you have forgotten the sunnah in respect to that. You left off the sunnah. This is what happens when you add something to something which is complete, something falls out. Hence, if they say, no, I'm not completing the religion, then our statement to them is, then Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, He says in the Quran, وَمَاذَا بَعْدَ الْحَقِّ إِلَّا الْبَاطِلِ. Then what is after the truth except falsehood? So if it is not in the Sunnah and you are not completing the religion, meaning you believe the religion is complete, then what you have brought is little more than falsehood, or no more than falsehood, which is brought. This is the manhaj that we follow. This is how we apply these ahadith in everything. In everything. If you want to know truth from falsehood, khalas is a very simple question. Very simple. Did the Prophet ﷺ do it? Did the Sahaaba do it? If the answer is yes, ahlan bihi. If the answer is no, please keep it far away from me. Please keep it far away from me. Don't bring it close to me. Why shouldn't I bring it close to me? Because when I say the shahada, I say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. I bear witness to the messengership of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, not to the messengership of anyone else. So we worship Allah upon the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa sallam. Very simple affair. Now it becomes important, ya ikhwan, to get into the topic that I really wanted to speak about. Is now that we know that there is one straight path, and that path is the path of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'een, then we also want to discuss what are some of those things that will lead a person astray from that path. Each and every one of us wants to be a follower of that path, because each and every one of us does not want to enter into the Jahannam of Allah, not even for a second. And may Allah make us from those whom are not tested with the touch of the fire. And we are entered into Jannah. Ameen. So now it becomes incumbent to know what are those things that lead away from this path. And now we have to be aware of them. From those things that lead away from that path, but at the head of them is jahl. Ignorance. Ignorance. If you choose to remain ignorant, you are not going to know the characteristics of that path. You're not going to know what the Prophet ﷺ did and what he did not do. For this reason, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, مَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُهُ فِي الدِّينِ. The one for whom Allah wants good, Allah gives him understanding of the religion. If Allah wants good for you, Allah will give you understanding of the religion. He will put that tawfiq in your heart, that you will want to take from your time to learn the religion of Allah. Something else that leads to straying from this path is ittiba'ul hawa, following your own desires. Following your own desires. And Allah, He reminds us that Ahlul Jannah, He says, وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. As for the one who fears the day he will stand in front of his Lord, or standing in front of his Lord, and he prevents himself from his own desires. He holds his desires at bay. I think that's the statement, at bay. He is فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى, that indeed Jannah is his abode. Because he remembers that, wait, one day I have to stand in front of Allah. So he does not allow his own desires to take control of him. He does not allow his desires to take control of him. Because there are from the people those that allow their desires to become, they become enslaved to their own desires. And this is the worst type of slavery. Right? Because if you are an actual slave, then you know that you are a slave. But if you are a slave to your desires, meaning you wake up in the morning and the first thing that your desires tell you to do, khalas, that's it. You're on the road to do what your desires are telling you to do. You don't give it a second thought to say, wait, is this the best thing for me? Is this good for me? Is this bad for me? What does the sunnah say? This person is enslaved to his desires. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says in Surah Al-Jathiyah, أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ وَخَتَمَ عَلَى سَمْعِهِ وَقَلْبِهِ وَجَعَلَ عَلَى بَصَرِهِ غِشَاوَةً. Have you seen? أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you seen the one who has taken as his deity his own desire? وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ. And Allah has led him astray upon knowledge. Meaning what? The book of Allah is there. It's not that the book of Allah is not there. It's not the sunnah is not there. But even with the book of Allah and the sunnah being there, even then you choose to follow your own desires. You don't want to follow kitab. You don't want to follow sunnah. You want to follow your own desires. وَأَضَلَّهُ اللَّهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ وَخَتَمَ عَلَى سَمْعِهِ. And He has placed a seal upon his hearing, وَقَلْبِهِ, and upon his heart, وَجَعَلَ عَلَى بَصَرِهِ غِشَاوَةً. And He has placed a seal, or He has placed a veil upon his sight. So you have ignorance, it will lead you astray from the path of Allah. If you're ignorant, the one who is ignorant, and if you're driving somewhere, right? If I was driving from here to Maryland, which alhamdulillah I did not do, right? I would need a GPS. If I don't have a GPS, I'm going to wind up in Texas because I don't know the way. Does anyone traveling from here to anywhere else, an hour away, 2 hours away, 3 hours away, do they leave the house without directions? No. No one leaves the house without directions. Either you call someone and say, Akhi, I'm going here, do you have the directions? Yes, I have the directions. You go down here, you take this exit, you turn left, then a right, and you're there. Or you go online MapQuest, print out your directions, and you come. Or you have a GPS in your car, you punch it in, the GPS tells you the way. Or nowadays, you have a phone, a smartphone. Tell the smartphone, this is where I want to go, smartphone gives you directions. No one in their right mind, emphasis on in their right mind, gets in their car to go somewhere without direction. No one does this. What's the worst that will happen? You get lost, right? Run out of gas money. But subhanAllah, on our way to Jannah, no directions? Flying blind? When you're traveling in this dunya, it's more likely that a person's like, khalas, someone gives me the wrong direction. Worst thing is they give me the right direction, I get lost. Worst thing, I'll get lost. Going to Jannah, you're ready to leave it to find someone else? You're not ready to take 2 hours a day from 24 hours of your day. You're not ready to take 2 hours a day to say, khalas, it's time for me to learn my religion. Let me get directions. But we leave it upon, oh no, this person told me this is what I should do, this is what I'm doing. Did he give you daleel? No, he didn't give me any daleel. But he seemed like a nice brother. That's who you're going to leave it upon, that's your directions to Jannah, the nice brother. So ignorance. Number 2, desires. Number 2 is desires. Another thing that leads people astray is at-taqleed wa ta'assub. Blind, bigoted following. And blind following. You follow someone in everything they say. Without daleel, no daleel. But that's it. This person is my imam, this person is my sheikh, this person is my friend, this is the one I'm following. It doesn't matter to you that someone comes, Akhi, what this brother is telling you is mukhalif, it goes against Quran and Sunnah, it doesn't matter. This is the person I'm following. This also leads us away from the path of Allah. على كل سبيل منها شيطان يدعو إليه. Upon every one of those ways is a shaitan calling to it. Al-Imam Abu Hurairah. Al-Imam Abu Hurairah, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the first of the 4 Imams. The first of the 4 great Imams. Imam Ahlul Sunnah. An Imam of Ahlul Sunnah. He said, if something comes from the book of Allah, فَعَلَى الرَّأْسِ وَالْعَيْنِ. If we have something, an ayah, إذا جاءت آية من كتاب الله فعلى الرأس والعين. Then full respect. وإذا جاءت سنة النبي. If the sunnah comes فعلى الرأس والعين. Full respect. أقوال الصحابة. Statements of the Sahaaba. فَعَلَى الرَّأْسِ وَالْعَيْنِ. Full respect. أقوال التابعين. فَهُمْ رِجَالٌ وَنَحْنُ رِجَالٌ. They are men and we are men. And Imam Abu Hanifa, he was from amongst them. He was either amongst the tabi'een or the atba' tabi'een. I forget which one. So this is what we follow. We don't follow ashkhas, we don't follow specific people. Other than the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Imam Malik, another of the great Imams. Another one from the great Imams, Imam Malik, Imam Dar al-Hijrah, the second of the Imams. The second from amongst them, he said, the statement of every individual can be accepted or rejected إلا صاحب هذا القبر, except the person in this grave, and he pointed to the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The ta'assub. Another thing, and we'll suffice inshallah ta'ala with this amount before dinner, inshallah. Another thing that goes astray, and unfortunately, probably from the most widespread reason for astrayness, is تقديم العقل على النصوص. A person put forth the product of his own intellect in front of what has come in the book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He deems his intellect to be sufficient to figure out what is true and what is false. Imam al-Barbahari rahimahullah ta'ala, in his book Sharh al-Sunnah, he said, وَأَعْلَمْ رَحِمَكَ اللَّهِ, know, may Allah have mercy upon you, أَنَّ الدِّينَ إِنَّمَا جَاءَ مِنْ قِبَلِ اللَّهِ تَبَارَكَ وَتَعَالَى. Indeed, the religion, it has come from Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. لَمْ يُوضَعْ عَلَىٰ أُقُولِ الرِّجَالِ وَأَرَائِهِمْ. It was not left to the intellect of men and their opinions. وَعِلْمُهُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. The knowledge of it is with Allah. This religion, ya akhani, was revealed from Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. It is not the product of anyone's intellect. Not even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. مَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. He does not speak of his own accord. It's revelation revealed. عِلْمُهُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ وَعِنْدَ رَسُولِهِ. Its knowledge is with Allah and with His Messenger. فَلَا تَتَّبِعْ شَيْئًا بِهَوَاكَ. Do not follow anything by your desires. فَتَمْرُقَ مِنَ الدِّينِ فَتَخْرُجَ مِنَ الْإِسْلَامِ. That you should exit the religion. You should leave the religion because of that. فَإِنَّهُ لَا حُجَّةَ لَكَ. You have no proof for doing that. Yani the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam never said to you, use your intellect to worship Allah. Use your intellect to establish acts of worship for Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Right? Because aslan, the religion has come for al-ijtima'. The religion has come for bringing the hearts together, not dividing them. Not dividing them. فَقَدْ بَيَّنَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ لِأُمَّتِهِ السُّنَّةِ. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has clarified for his ummah the sunnah. وَأَوْضَحَهَا لِأَصْحَابِهِ. He has clarified it for his companions. وَهُمُ الْجَمَاعَةِ. They are the jama'ah. وَهُمُ السَّوَادُ الْأَعْظَمِ. And they are the great majority. وَالسَّوَادُ الْأَعْظَمِ الْحَقُّ وَأَهْلُهُ. The great majority is the truth and its people. فَمَنْ خَالَفَ أَصْحَابَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. The one who opposes the companions of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم في شيء من أمر الدين, in anything from the affairs of the religion, فَقَدْ كَفَرَ. He has disbelieved. And he has disbelieved meaning what? Yani if he denies anything from what they left and said, no, they were wrong. They, the Sahaaba, they were wrong in this. They were not right. So he denies an aspect of the religion, then this is exit out of the religion. Right? It exits him out of it. And the meaning is not that if someone opposes the Sahaba in some of their actions because of a lack of understanding or because of a lack of diligence, that they are outside of their religion. This is not the manhaj of Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. The creed is not made that simply. So it has been clearly laid out there. When we mentioned the statement of Imam al-Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala, that inna lil-uquli haddan tudriku fi. Our intellects, they have a boundary within which they work. And the ulama, they explain this a bit further. The intellect of a person, it is a tool that Allah has gifted us with. It is a gift of Allah. Allah has raised us above the rest of His creation, from the animals and the different beasts that roam the earth, by giving us aql, intellect. But then that intellect, He did not make it a means of attaining understanding of everything. He did not make it a means of understanding everything through our intellect, right? This is actually the way of the Greek and the Roman empires. They were the ones that put forth the use of aql and everything, the use of intellect, human intellect, and how human intellect can achieve on the boundaries of the truth. It's not Islam. Islam is built upon ilm al-ghayb. Your intellect does not work with something unseen. Your intellect is a tool that you use, that I use, that we use, to make sense of the information that we gather together through our senses. Right? We can see, we can hear, we can touch, we can smell. These are our senses. So, for example, someone goes to a fire. He sees the color of the fire. He can smell the burn. Right? He can hear it. And if he brings his hand close, he can feel the heat. So his intellect tells him, stay far away from it. But the religion of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is not based upon aql. Because the aql of men, my intellect is different from yours, yours is different from the person sitting next to you. His intellect is different from the one sitting next to him. His is different from the one sitting next to him. What would the hal of the ummah be if everyone was left to their intellect? Their hal would be what the hal is today. Divided, deferred. This is not the place of the intellect. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he put it the best. He explained it the best. When we do mas, what is mas? Wiping over the socks, right? Or the shoes or the hook, right? Where do you wipe over? On the top of it. But where do you walk upon? The bottom of it. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, if our religion was based upon intellect, we would do mas of the bottom. We would do mas of the bottom. We wouldn't do mas on the top. When someone has relationships with their wife or their husband, do you only wash that portion of the body? What do you wash? The entire body. Why? Is that an intellectual thing to do? If you told someone, use your intellect, after you have relations, what are you going to wash? A specific part of the body, right? The private parts. They're not going to say, I'm going to wash my entire body. And I'm going to wash it by starting with my hands, and washing the private areas, then making wudu, then washing from the right hand side, then washing the left hand side. Is this something that intellect can come to? No, right? What about the 5 daily salawat? With qiyam and ruku' and sajda and julus and taslim. This is not the product of anyone's intellect. This is rather revelation of Allah revealed. And this is the issue, ya ikhwan, today. That people, they apply their intellect where their intellect has no place. So what do? They cause havoc, chaos, all over the earth. Havoc and chaos. Because they put their intellect first. And they've put the texts of the Quran behind them. So much so that if you go to them and you say, Ya akhi, jazakallah khair, the Quran, Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala says this, His Messenger has said this. If it does not match their own intellect, they're not going to take it. They're not going to accept it. To the point that some of them would deny the punishment of the grave. Is there punishment in the grave? Is it mentioned in the Quran? Is it mentioned in the Sunnah? No, it's mentioned in both. But they will be the ones that say, no, if you dig up a grave, nothing is happening. See, nothing is happening, no punishment in the grave. No punishment. See? If you say the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he informed us that when the sun sets, where does it go? It goes to prostrate in front of the throne of Allah. What will they say? No, the sun, it's always rising and setting somewhere. What does Ahlul Sunnah say? No, the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said this. This is what the sun does. How? Allah knows best how. No, it's always rising, always setting, even if. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said this. And we'll finish with this example. When the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his journey, al-Isra wal-Mi'raj, right? Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj, from Makkah to Bayt al-Maqdis to the seven heavens and back, all in a very short period, not even 1 minute, short period of time, right? The next day when they went to Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and they told him, this is the statement of the Sunni, this is the statement of the Sunnah. They told Abu Bakr, have you heard what your companion is saying? No, what is he saying? He's saying in one night, in one night, this is not even possible today. Right? Is it possible today in one night? It's not even possible today. From Makkah to Bayt al-Maqdis to the seven heavens and back. In one night. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, this is when he was given the laqab as-Siddiq. Is that what he said? Yes, that's what he said, and that's what happened. Put his aql to the side, put his intellect to the side. When the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam informs you of something, when our Lord Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, Khaliqus Samawati wal Ard, the creator of the heavens and the earth, tells you something, take your intellect and put it on the side and accept what Allah has said. Accept what His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said. I'm going to keep going on with examples, and the food is going to get cold. So inshallah ta'ala, and even when the food is served, you should even delay the salah. So inshallah we'll stop the dars here. We'll continue inshallah ta'ala in the next, whenever the next hour is inshallah. هذا وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. This is the explanation of